Welcome back to another episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. Today we have Atlanta-based sports photographer Carmen joining us, and I'm super excited to have her join us. So let's get into it.
What's up? Hey, Jenna, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. Am I doing it right?
Yeah, you've got it down. How's everything going?
Going okay. I could complain, but who would listen? I always think about that. Like, my dad was a real, hard knocks kind of guy. Is this volume okay and everything?
Yeah, you're great.
I'm not going to touch anything then. So he would always ask me, honey, how was your day? And I'd be like, I would start to say something. He's like, if it's negative, don't tell me. Like, don't bring me down. And I always think about that. Like, whenever somebody's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, aces, right? What can you say? How's motherhood?
Oh, wow. Disclaimer here, you may hear her in the background. It's like,
Okay.
my dad is her babysitter, and we're working from home right now. So I'm pretty sure he's doing his walk back and forth with her right now, trying to get her down for her nap. So you may hear her try to
How
find
old
a
is
nap.
she now?
So.
How old
But
is she?
it's great. She turned 7 months over the weekend. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's a different ball game, that's for sure.
How long into your pregnancy did you shoot
Um,
as far as game coverage?
I covered my last game at the end of September, and she was due around the end of October.
Wow. We're
So
super, girl.
it was a nightmare. I tried to tough it out, and like I definitely could handle it, but it was pretty close to being unbearable just because it was, the fall in the South and football like at noon. Like it's
Oh,
just, how hot it is. So,
it's just, I try to explain to people, it's like one of my biggest hurdles. It's like, I'm never satisfied. I never, I've never once, I've never once walked off the field. People are like, Carm, how did that go? I go, I had the right lens, exactly what I wanted. It's like
yeah.
never happened to me in life. So I always have like 13 things I'm like slinging around. And it's just like in the heat, it's like this little level of Pilates because like your body's like a tiny bit torqued, like a little bit stressed. So I
Yeah.
just sweat from like the second I leave my car till I come back. I'm just like,
Exactly.
I can't imagine
Exactly.
being pregnant and housing. I can barely carry my own carcass, let alone another human. Forget it.
It was definitely interesting. I don't know. I maybe would not recommend, but I would never, you can't really, I mean, we can get into this in a minute, but you can't really say, "Oh, I can't handle it." You know what I mean? Not in what we do.
Right.
So, anyway, so I thought we'd start out with just kind of your background, like a little bit about you and how you got into photography.
Okay. So funny. Like I've actually been trying to rewrite my bios and artist statements and clean up like my website and everything, and um, it's still blank. The about me. I can't figure out how to dress it up. So I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I was,
Oh, wait, I didn't know that.
yeah. Actually, people are always like, "Oh, I thought you were from New York." I go, "Am I being typecast? Is this a Jersey thing, like an Italian thing?" People always say that to me. I don't know where this comes from. Um, I was raised by my father, and I have a brother who's 3 years older. Um, Started taking pictures when I was a teenager. Um, there were no influences around me. The first thing that kind of caught my eye was um, my dad was big into the ponies, so we were at the racetrack all the time. He loved thoroughbreds, and so we would go early. And did you ever see the movie A Bronx Tale?
Uh-huh.
You know the scene when they're at Aqueduct Racetrack, and it's like they have that beautiful score. They're playing like it's a beautiful morning, like great Motown, and just like shows the scenes. That's always like track we went to up north was called Thistledown.
Mm-hmm.
My dad took us to a bunch of others. Like we would vacation at like Santa Anita. Like it was like really like we were like it was sad. It was a sad situation. Um, but watching the horses get a bath in the morning and steam coming off them, that was my first sports image that I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is a frame. This is astonishing. So that was the first thing I saw when I was younger. And then the other thing that I saw when I was younger was my brother's Topps cards. Those sort of stock images, like,
Yeah.
to me, that was in my mind. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe like you could just go somewhere and just get a picture of Barry Sanders. Because that was like, right, my brother's like Robin Banks to go get this card. I'm like, dude, I could like make that picture for him. Again, just that sort of like, um, and then so I ended up going to Ohio State because actually it's funny. I just had this conversation with somebody. Um, so I got into OU, but I didn't get into their journalism program. And I don't know if you know this, but Ohio University has a
Oh
very
yeah.
revered J school, right?
Oh yeah.
So like me and Logan Riley always joke about this because he was like, Carmen wasn't good enough for OU, so she had to go Ohio State. But Ohio State was the perfect fit for me because I am like a street kid, so I wouldn't have fit in at OU.
Mhm.
Um, so went to Ohio State, and then for me, my background is not at all like a lot of. I would love to hear different stories. I often feel like I kind of hear the same story, and that makes me feel obscure. And I think that there's probably a lot more people who've had different roads. We just don't talk to each other. We're just hard to find, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, so, college for me was more about coming of age and learning how to work and support yourself. It wasn't really like, hey, let's explore our dreams and
Yeah.
let's intern and let's foster that part of development. I didn't have the means to do that. It was really about I was a server and I worked 7 days a week, and that was really going to college. Looking, you can't change things, but looking back now, I was chasing what I saw people my age doing, what my friends were doing, and I just economically and with the support system that I had at that time, that was a little bit above my head, and that was kind of
Yeah.
what that phase was about. And then after that, um, essentially didn't take advantage of the things I should have in college, right? Like I didn't meet with my professors after class. I didn't get to know the local journalist. I didn't work for the paper. So after school, I just kind of just had to apply for like open-ended stuff. And so I started shooting travel, dance, and cheer because there's a
Mhm.
market for that. Um, and then shot for the paper in Cleveland, and then I left.
Oh,
Um,
which Cleveland paper?
Sun Pressed,
You
the
know, I don't
Cleveland
know that
Sun
one.
Pressed.
I don't
very,
know that one. We lived there for about 7 months. So,
very glamorous. Like, I was like, so of course the big highlight was that I did all the high school sports, but I
yeah.
mean, I also had to do like the community meetings where it'd be like Joe Smith is like the stop sign at Rudiker and Smith stirring my tree, and
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I've peaked. Um, so after Cleveland, so then I bounced around quite a bit. I went to Chicago, uh, and then down to Tampa. I did a lot of work down at ESPN Worldwide Sports. They had like a ton of stuff there. And then eventually ended up in Atlanta because Atlanta had um, a company, AMBSE, and that's Arthur Blank's company.
Mhm.
When they added the soccer team and the stadium, that kind of added two businesses on top of the Falcons.
Oh wow.
And so sometimes people don't think about that, like 'cause that's three entities housed under one house. So I kind of thought when I saw a position open up here to be assistant to the team photographer here, Kara Durrett for the Falcons,
Yeah, yeah, Kara.
I thought that would be there could be some potential there, to do other things.
Mhm.
Um, so I
And
came,
that's recent, right? That's within the last few years.
yeah, and I came here to edit for her, and I was a horrible editor for her. So she's probably like, I think we probably laugh about it now, but probably wasn't funny at the time. because she vehemently was like, Carmen, you're a shooter. Are you sure you can come and edit? I was like, 100% Kara, whatever you need.
Hmm.
And then I showed up like a bait and switch, and I was like, oh, it's like, it doesn't really seem so good. You try, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I would love, I've been freelance for like 9 years. And I was like, oh, let's go internal. Let's see what that looks like. And then I saw what that looked like. And then it wasn't, the creative director here, Michael Benford, was like, yeah, she's like, it's like, Carmen, we're disappointed that you don't have a skill in this field, but in this other realm, we definitely are going to push you in these areas.
Yeah.
So it ended up being like a wonderful experience. But sometimes, you just, you reach for something and then you find something close on that path. And
Yeah.
so then I stayed in Atlanta after that. Um, and then I'm here now. And so I still try and get back to Florida quite a bit, um, to keep my connections there and coverage there. And some of the travel baseball teams that I cover down there. And um, there's a couple clients that I have that'll move me around, but otherwise, just mainly down in the South right now. So,
Yeah. Not too far away. I know I need to make it down there more often than I do.
well,
Um,
you're North Carolina, right?
yep, I'm in North Carolina. So I primarily shoot college athletics and then, Panthers here and there. Last season, I only covered a couple Panthers because I was pregnant.
Your college stuff is so emotive. You know what I mean? I mean, like if somebody threw a bunch of pictures on the floor and they're like, which one is Jenna's? And I don't even know too much of your history, but I know that every frame of yours is so emotive. And I'm like, that sort of, you know, it's fast moving and it's tight on a basketball court. That is tight down there. Like when I shoot Georgia games, I mean, I feel like I'm underneath a table. People
Yeah.
are in my lap, they're on top of me, I can barely move. I mean, like they have taken away all of our seats. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's exactly how it is at Carolina. I can't believe you just said that. I am so like I look up to you so much. I can't believe you just said that.
no, wait,
I
no question. When I watch your work, it's similar with like why when I look for who to kind of call me on the carpet and keep me like, the ESPN photographers, because ESPN pays attention to college, collegiate level. That's a huge part of their market.
Mhm.
And just those athletes, that is the peak of emotion. Pro sports, it's rare, it's different. It's,
Yeah.
there's prettier angles with certain things because there's more money in production. There's some different elements. But as far as emotion, that is the peak of it, as far as sports photographers, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's a great point. I know I need to be, it's so interesting. You have all these goals for yourself. And I mean, I would gather that everybody's like that, but you have all these goals for yourself, so you're always looking for like how can I do this better and how can I do this better. And so, thank you for saying that because yeah, I need to be more grateful sometimes. I am pretty lucky to be able to cover Carolina and Duke for basketball. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's just huge. It's like, Jenna, it's like explosive. It's like, you know, I go to some events and I don't want to like trash any events that they're like, oh, we're going to give that time assignment away, Carmen, if you don't appreciate it. But, especially like being inside a stadium, I really, really struggle inside a stadium shooting football. So,
mhm.
um, I mean, yeah, just the the technique and the speed that you have in grabbing those reactions. I mean, that's also a skill that, you honing that and building that like over, year over year. Um, I notice I'll be slower. If I have too many pro assignments and I go to like a collegiate or like a high school game, I'm missing that there's gonna be Jude after every base hit, right? There's gonna be like I'm not watching for things. I'm slowing down because I'm used to these like, elite level athletes that, for
Yeah.
7 million, they're going to keep their composure. And I go, it's so boring. But
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Um Awesome. So that is definitely something I want to talk to you about. Do you care if I pull up? Do you have a favorite picture or something? Do you care if I pull it up? I'm looking at your website right now.
no, of
Is there
course,
one that you
no.
feel
Whatever you
the
want to do, babe. Yeah,
Let's so I definitely want to talk to you about Actually, it won't let me pull up an individual, I don't think. So I'm just going to pull up the whole thing if that's okay.
Oh, if you go into galleries, it will. That splash page, people are always like, I can't click on it. I go, click on the splash page.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Awesome.
I also have in my exposure site, there's all the divided stories if there's one particular thing you wanted to look at.
I was just going to pull up this one. Let me see if I can get it on here. Um, so it's your Rockies picture, the with the light of the
Oh
guy
my
just coming
God.
out of the.
Freaking Core Stadium. I seriously was like, I'm not a faith believer, but I'm like, if Jesus is with us, he's at this park tonight. Uh, dude, Matt Dirksen, I'm like, I don't know how I can be like, can I just get on his roster for like one game a year? And that was actually at
Was
uh,
that Summit?
the Summit Series workshop, which,
Yeah.
um, is I cannot say enough about. It took me such a long time to get there because it's it's a real investment because
Oh
of
yeah.
the panel they put together. And so I kind of felt like a little bit I felt like an older person there. Like if people were like, Carmen, like, what are you doing here? You should have come 10 years ago. I'm like, who could afford this 10 years ago? I couldn't afford a 400 till I was in my 30s. And so I don't know who these people are that make like 20 grand and they're like 6 years old. They walk onto the field. It took me like literally people are like, Carmen, like what, like I have a friend who'd look at me like, what's the gear situation? And I'm like, I don't know about you guys. I'm paid like $75 an assignment. That doesn't translate to a 400 for me. I don't know what's happening with everybody else, but
Yeah. Speaking of gear, if you've never checked out Lynn's Rentals, you really should. I've used their products and services multiple times over the years, and I can honestly say that I've never had a bad experience with them. If there's ever been any gear that you wanted to try out, now is the opportunity. Visit the link in this episode's description and head over to Lynn's Rentals now. Well, yeah, and that's what's so interesting is just the ability to. I don't know about you, but I just make do with what I have, and when I can, I invest. But you know what I mean? I'm not going to let not being able to shoot with, a 600 at a baseball game keep me from making
oh,
images.
man, it's like
So,
no question. They're like, Kurt, why is your 35 gaff together? I'm like, don't worry about it. I'm like, I don't own anything new. I haven't bought anything new.
everybody's got gear.
No, I
But I
could
have.
sleep. Babe, like I try and like dress it up. Like literally it's an empty box that I've wrapped nicely. And I'm like, don't look too closely. She's like, what's inside there? I'm like, just skeletons. Trust me.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, I'm like, and people are like, oh, I'm getting the new 1DX Mark III. I'm like, I'm going to test it out. But there's no way I'm purchasing that anytime soon. And you
You know,
know what? I can make images with the 1DX. Why do I need to do that?
exactly. You
You made
don't.
images a year ago with the 1DX. Why do you have to have, whatever. I mean, to each their own, but for me, I like am a big believer that it's not about the gear. Like I totally I geek out on it and I think it's so cool what's happening, but like again, I'm not going to let that stop me from making images.
Honestly, Jenna, looking back, the main thing it did for me is it allowed some of the people next to me to treat me less serious. And when I look back now, with different eyesight, right?
Hmm.
Different vision. I go, that's on them, right? That's a choice they made, and I think I mean, I don't know for sure, but my thought is that those are like a lot of my peers, now have children, and I kind of look at them and I kind of think, I just kind of laugh. I go, like the way that you treated me 6 years ago, somebody's gonna do that to your daughter, and then we'll see, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, I just think about that kind of stuff, but yeah, the gear it's kind of like a guardianship, like it's a line. It's
Yeah.
a line that prevents us from certain things. But as far as there's so much you can do in sports to get by, and rental houses have really come along so far.
Yeah.
That, if you have an assignment that you need to put yourself in a position to walk away with something, um, then rent the gear for sure. And
Yeah.
yes, you're going to take a loss in the assignment, but that's a vote for your future. So, um,
Yeah.
but the with the summit series,
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about that.
so do you know Chris Stepik who runs it?
I I don't know Chris, but I know some of the other instructors that are there.
Okay, so I didn't know Chris either. I met him at a Super Bowl at Get the Getty Super Bowl party in Atlanta,
Hmm.
and he was like, "Yeah, he's like, I saw that you kind of followed us for a while. Like, you should consider it, right?" So, um, honestly, John, like I would go every year if they wouldn't be creeped out. Like I'm just gonna like work at the hotel where it's held for like a month, and they're like, "Yeah, like you serve coffee here?" Like I do. Can
Yeah.
I sit in the meeting? Like it
That's great. That's
was.
great.
I can't even put into words how amazing it was. And it also, I also met someone there that's been really influential with me for me professionally in a way that I've never had someone take an interest in me or to allow me to ask certain questions, like a safe space to really grow as a professional. And I think with sports, it's so competitive that we're so focused on the micro aspects of advancing that part of their career that we don't do a ton of understanding how to be business owners. And if you're a freelancer, you are 1000% a business owner. I think that that's been the hardest thing for me to cultivate and learn and translate
Yeah.
my passion into a sturdy success that'll build a healthier life. Um, and Summit, it was just blew my mind. So, first off, I almost didn't even bring my gear there because I was like, it's fucking like Elsa. Oh, sorry to swear. I'm sorry, babe. It was
No,
like
you're okay.
Jenna and like Jen Potheiser and like Max, like who I'm like nuts about, and I was like, oh my god, I'm like I'm not gonna be shooting. I want to hear them talk. Dave Black, who like oh my god, I'm just like trying to tie his shoe when he's like walking. He's like, man, please, like to me, he's like the like just absolute like. I was like, oh my god, like just astonishing. So many people. I can't even. Like, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. Like Mark, Joey. I mean, just everybody.
Hmm.
So I shooting was totally irrelevant to me because I was like, I don't even want to bring my gear. Like, I just want to take notes. I want to be immersed in it. I want to hear their thoughts, like creatively, professionally, competitively. Like, how do they see a game? Like, how does Elsa go to like a foreign country, like, and shoot a World Cup? I mean, just
Yeah.
Olympics, everything. Like I just had like questions for days and just wanted to be a sponge. It's like last stitch thing. They were like, "Yeah, Carmen, bring your gear." Like, what are you doing? And then I actually, when I was there, we were on an assignment, and Jenna was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm not really into shooting this." And she was like, "You're like missing the picture. These are the people here who have to hire you." She's like, "Definitely make a photo." And in my head, looking back, I was just so overwhelmed, like
Hmm.
emotionally, viscerally, like in just such a wonderful way. I forgot that I still had to perform because these
Yeah.
are my bosses, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
So
we were,
yeah, so to keep going on that kind of spectrum, what I mean, I obviously like we talked about like I mean these things are astronomical in price. Like, I've wanted to do I finally like saved enough money to be able to do Peter Reed Miller's workshop last fall, and then I was
wonderful.
pregnant, so I couldn't go.
Oh
Um,
no.
and so, but like besides that, like can you talk a little bit about why you think kind of like continuing that education, like just like
Okay,
I mean,
I
yeah,
like
like
literally I can't even put it into words, and I also at the same time at the same parallel notion I can't stop talking about it because for me, I am obsessed with sports photography. I am obsessed with trying to be good at what I do, and I'm not a natural. And so for me, I would say I'm probably I hate even talking about it. I'm a better feature shooter than I am an action shooter, and I'm
mhm,
desperate to live as an action shooter, right? This is my dream. This is the passion. So
yeah,
that's something that it's my absolute weakness. And, it takes gall to be like, I want you to pay me to do this. I really have to be working towards, if I'm asking you to pay me to do this, that's me saying that I can do it better than person B next to me. So what does that entail? And it's like sacrifice to get better. So you have to understand where your flaws are or what you need to improve, and then seek out uh, the language of that. And so it's so, one of the things like there's like a million Zooms out there, and there's all this quote unquote free education.
yeah,
Nobody talks about how to follow a play, and get a feel for what's going to happen. Like that's like probably 1% of the information out there. Honestly, it's just people talking about the after effect of a frame. That is not helpful to me. It's
Yeah.
not helpful to me for you to describe, here's what I walked away with. For me, what's so interesting is the decision making that goes into it. And, like for me, the nervousness. Jenna, I like could have a panic attack in the red zone like every day in my life. I'm like, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen. And then like, the people who talk to you and they go, Carm, it's going one of fucking two ways. Either it's coming to your side and you're gonna make a frame, or it's going away from you, you're gonna track it, maybe get some jude, maybe get a safe play. That's not your photo to make. And people like, so this is the thing about paying for this. You have to find a way to get around the people that are going to communicate to you what to you is most precious about how to improve. So, like a photographer like Mike Ehrman. Do you know Mike Ehrman?
Yep. Hmm.
So, Mike is the most fucking talented guy, just effortless. He's like, his eyes are closed, just puts his camera out, walks out with things. And I'm like sweating, laboring over making one decent frame. So we were shooting Rays baseball, which I don't know if you know about the Tampa Bay Rays in the dome. It's like like
I've
it's,
never shot there. I've watched some games,
I don't
so I
know
know
if
the
that's
dome, what the
the
dome looks
Will,
like. But
like, because Will makes amazing frames there. So God bless him. But it's like, I mean, I don't want to put words to it. There's a lot to be desired. Okay, I'll just leave it there.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm watching the game and I'm like watching the count, right? And like, the batters count, like trying to just really stay ahead of it. And Mike's just like, your whole energy is like bringing me down. He's like, you're so nuts over nothing. He's like, I don't know what you're doing. He's like, you're just killing me. He's like, stand over there. I need you to just get away from me. So then I just told Mike, I was like, Mike, this stuff, like, I have to try so hard to focus. I don't have your reaction time. He goes, you're fighting it. He's like, you're fighting everything that's happening in front of you. He goes, and I sat next to Mike at a football game. I think it was like at a Georgia game, maybe Florida, Georgia. And he goes, or maybe not. Maybe I was one time. I don't know what it was, but I was like, Mike explained to me, he goes, Carmen, will it towards you, and then you're no longer surprised again. And that to me was like, 10 years of cobwebs cleared out. He just goes, you see your QB dropping back, will that pass to your side? And then you're never going to be surprised again. The surprise is if it goes away from you, you track it on your 400, you're fine. You never have to feel like, oh my God, the play fell into my lap, I wasn't ready, because you were already willing it. You were already anticipating it.
hmm,
So when you approach sports that way and you go, I don't care what happens, I want it to come right to me. When you're willing that to come your way, it changes your whole reaction process and ability to do what we're supposed to do, which is be on top of everything, have the absolute quickest reflexes, and make a conscious frame.
yeah,
And I mean, I tried to teach myself that for like a decade. And then this guy just goes, here, just like throws me a bird seed, right? Change. And that was what Summit Series is like. It's the people who have perfected how to do what we're trying to do, and they let you talk and they listen, and they can quickly see, like Jen Potheiser is someone that I'll tell her something, and she immediately goes, Carm, here's the mark you're missing. I need you to reframe it, think about this way, and go back at it.
huh.
And it's just like, it's priceless. You can't
Yeah,
even. I don't see any other way to learn it. I watch other things. I've investigated other stuff. It's the people that have been out there for 30 years making frames. They know it like the back of their hand, and they just know how to explain those specifics, the difference makers, how
yeah,
to approach a game, how to be involved, how to anticipate, um, just how to be successful in it. It's just intangible. I can't even.
yeah,
I would do it every year if I could, 100%.
yeah. No, that's definitely one I've looked at too. No, that was great. That was some great information. Um, so let's back up a second. So you go to college at Ohio State. Did you study photography?
I did
Okay.
photography and psychology.
Okay, so you're studying photography. See, so and I don't like we've never talked about this. So I actually did journalism, but no photojournalism. I didn't take a photography class until my last semester of college, and then I was like, oh man, I really like this. I should do something. So I did my master's in photography, not sports related whatsoever. I used to be a professional ballet dancer,
Oh wow,
so
okay,
that's how I kind of molded those two eventually. They kind of met, and that's how I kind of got into sports. But,
that's so
um,
interesting, babe.
but so how did you find, I guess for those people like myself, how would you suggest kind of morphing into the sports world when you kind of see like all these internships and things like, oh, here's an internship with, you know, I don't know, let's just say the Rams, but you have to have college credit and it's not paid. Like, so how did you find your path after leaving college?
So, essentially, the first internship I was able to take was the Falcons. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the first time for me that I was even able to do something like that, and I was the oldest person in the building. Like I was in this room with like 20-year-olds. They're like, "Who's this weirdo over here?"
That's who I am. I'm in the room
I
with all
was
these.
like, I was like, "This is the move that's right for me." Everybody's like, "Carmen, like we're so confused. Like, do you have low self-esteem? What's happening?" Um, but that I could never intern when I was younger because I always had to be working. Period.
Yeah.
So I would say that ask people, listen, and learn. Right. So a lot of times there's this question of people ask a question about where they want to end up. They go, "How do I get here?" And I go, "Well, first off, whatever here is, you need to understand uh, what's that hiring position? Who's hiring for that position?" Right. So um, once you establish that and you see what the actual job is, you look at the requirements, right? And the requirement is a portfolio. It's somehow a public establishment that you can create frames in a given situation. So then now you know what you need. And the places that you go and find that, I think where people get caught up is they're trying to find maybe the high marketed options. And all you
Mm-hmm.
need to do is display your style. So it's like go to your local rodeo and take a photo, and it'll be the same as, if it was like a Michigan, whatever, and there was like high profile. So I think for people, if you know young that you want to do sports, you have to be making sports frames.
Mm-hmm.
So, my technical degrees in psychology. So it's not like I
Yeah.
ever applied anywhere with like a bachelor's in photography. Um, so it's funny because you and I are kind of opposite. I was always a shooter. I got more interested in journalism as I progressed, and now it's hard for me to get motivated to take a photo without a storyline. So I'm much more interested in photojournalism than I am commercial. A
Yeah.
1,000%. It's really hard for me to even package branding and stuff. It's just not as attracted to it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In my day job, I'm doing more branding stuff. I work like in healthcare photography and film,
okay.
but for sports, I'm like my journalism background is like that's no,
Oh my
this
God,
is
they
not
tell me
me.
there's a kid on the sideline who his house burned down. He's living with his aunt now. He practices in his backyard. I go, "Where's this kid? I don't care what else is happening." I go, "It's my
Exactly.
whole future." They're like, "Carl, we need you to cover the game." I'm like, "I'm out. Get somebody else." Just like a beeline. So
That's awesome.
um, for young kids, I think too, the problem is like there's like four people. And there's like it's such a small market that like it's wonderful that we've been able to highlight people to go to, right? We've highlighted some North Stars. But I think we need to even get better about that so that there's kids that they don't have a portfolio because they don't have a camera. So we
Yeah.
get to them and explain to them, you need to get a side job. You need $60 a week because then you can rent a camera. You rent that camera with the kit lens. You're going to go to this game Friday night, and week after week, at the end of the year, you're going to have 15 pictures. And then year over year, we're going to progress it. So I think that that's the answer, is explaining to people that just steps, right? So just one step after another. The thing that I always saw was I was in a lot of unglamorous situations in my past, but I think people watched me year over year improve and were like, she's not excelling, but we see where she's going. And they could see that I was not going to stop until it was better, period. And then they just stuck around long enough. We're like, all right. So
So from a hard work perspective, you
I
just
think
nailed
everything
it.
about, I mean, like, Jen, I can't, everything for me is about being blue collar. It's the only thing I know. And people are like, Carmen's such a fucking broken record, but it's the only way I've ever seen anything done. I've never seen anything just naturally occur. Like, we struggled a lot growing up. Like my dad was diagnosed with cancer when I was 16.
Hmm.
And so then he was on disability until, I don't know, after I was in college. And then, we ended up losing him later. And it was like,
I'm
there
so
was just, there
sorry.
was no means to, there weren't like just extra pieces around, like, oh, let's sculpt something. It was, no, it was one year we got one piece. The next year we built another piece. And then the third year we built a piece there. And so it was a very slow moving thing. And at the time, obviously, I read that probably more out of frustration and didn't see the growth. But when I look back now, I can see that there's a ton of different recipes. They're just not all as glamorous, but um, the biggest thing starts with is not, once you know, I mean, you're so fortunate once you know you love something, right? There's such inner peace that comes from being a creator. If that's what you want, then you've already found your purpose. You're so far ahead of so many people. And it's such a wonderful gift to even have a connection to a craft. Because, every minute I spend working on photography, I spend working on something I've built for myself. And so,
Yeah.
a lot of, corporations, like, I've heard a lot of wonderful talks, and from a lot of authors I really respect, about people who are in their late 60s that have given themselves to a job that never paid them back restoratively.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll probably be living under the bridge, but I'll be really happy. So, like, they're in a mansion.
Yeah.
I can come over for the weekend. I'll go back to my hut later. But, I just think that to reassure kids that the first step's done, you have direction, and now it's just kind of a building period that can take time. But for kids that this is what they want to do, just make frames. That's all you have to do, because
Yeah.
the more you make, the more people can talk to you too, and they can say, hey, here's what's right, here's what's wrong. People aren't going to talk to you in theory. Like, Jeff Haynes, right?
Oh yeah.
Jeff Haynes is probably the person who's cared the most to help me in my tenure.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Anytime I see one of your photos, he's like definitely one of the ones to comment on there.
He's my only fan. He's definitely my only fan, and he's also really tough. Because if I try to say to Jeff, hey, Jeff, I'm frustrated about this, he goes, yeah, we'll try it again. I don't care. He's not like zero chill. Not, like, if I have a hard day, I'm not like, man, who would make this better? If I call Jeff, because he's going to be like, well, what are you going to do tomorrow? And I'm like, feel bad for myself. I'm probably until the weekend. And he goes, just get off the phone. Don't waste my time.
I'll talk to you next week.
The other thing too is, like, if I go, Jeff, my reaction time is horrible. I have this happening, that happening. He goes, Carmen, I don't want to hear um, hypotheticals. Let me see the frames. We'll talk about it. You have to bring your work to people. They are not just going to talk to you in theory.
Hmm.
That's not how it works. It works about, they need to see that you went out, you applied yourself, and they can say, okay, he can say, okay, you didn't follow the play, you didn't do this, you're putting yourself out of position, now you're chasing a frame, and then there can be a conversation. So that's the thing too about kids, that, trust me, go show them what you think your job was to do, right? So I think my job was to cover the game, right? And then this is how I interpreted that assignment. And then they can say, you didn't check off these boxes. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Then that's an applicable conversation. And that's how progression's made.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great advice. So, you mentioned Jeff and you mentioned someone from Summit. You didn't say who, and that's fine. You don't have to.
Jen
Um,
Heiser.
oh, gotcha. So,
She's like, "Honey,
how.
don't link your name to mine."
No, I'm sure she's like.
I can't worship Jen more. She's definitely the first person that empowered me to be a business owner, and that's something that I mean, I'll think about that for years to come. So,
That's amazing. So, how do you develop these? So, most of these questions that I'm asking you are kind of, for aspiring sports photographers or aspiring photographers in general.
okay.
Um, how did you develop those relationships with mentors, or how would you kind of navigate that path?
So, understanding that our industry has changed quite a bit, right? So, there's a lot of, I think it's twofold. I think it's awareness, and then I think it's external awareness and personal awareness. So, in saying this, Jenna, I don't know what my mentors think of me. I have no idea. I can only comment from how I see them,
Yeah.
and you know, I think it's an understanding that the industry has changed so much in our time with the decline of the paper and the decline of staff jobs, and really the inability to monetize the digital space. We have not figured that out yet, and that's why we kind of have a monopoly with the agencies, and things are so different now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand that a lot of times your path, your opportunities, your questions may be different than the road someone else went on. So I think a problem too with kids that are younger, they haven't worked hard for anything yet. So they don't necessarily know how to approach hard work
Yeah.
as far as a mentor goes. So, I hadn't sat in a rain delay for 30 years and then been like, hey, Rona, how do I make a picture in the rain? Just like sit through 30 years of it and then give me a call, right?
Yeah.
That's a call thing. If I just go, I worked this one tournament this weekend and it was rain, like rain delays, am I right? She's like, I can't talk to you, right? Like that's like horrific. So
Yes.
so try and be really mindful and understand there's so much that we don't know when you're young. I think that's the most important thing. And then take the time to learn the people that came before you. So, especially as for female photographers, like Maureen Cavana does an amazing job now with the women in sports um, community, because when you sit down and you Google after Elsa, maybe Maddie, nobody's name's popping up. And it's,
Mm-mm.
you know, I regret that I didn't dig further when I was younger, because I didn't find the females that I should have paid reference to until later, like until I went to a game and like I went down to Miami and I like stepped on Rona's toe and I was like, oh my god, it's freaking Rona Weiss, like stuff like that where do due diligence, learn who's come before you, and this it's also you don't just have to spray like appreciation for across the industry. You pick who speaks to you. It should be genuine.
Yeah.
So you follow their work, you look at like they covered a World Series in 95 and what that looked like and the choices they made and then the ring ceremony. And, I'll look up Jeff's freaking Panini shoot from whenever and, take the time to look at things, to understand how they live their life and respect that, he left his boys on Thanksgiving to go cover a game for 30 years, like the choices that they've made. And so then even though I'm talking, I've said a lot of things that have irritated my mentors, right? And I've done a lot of things they probably didn't approve of, and but they're you can they will allow for growing pains if you display genuine passion in work. So I think that the more you work on the quality and the honesty of your own product, the more that will translate probably better than your cover letter even will. So I don't think it's about like, oh, I want to message, Sean Hubbard and ask him like, Sean, like, how do you choose? Like, I don't think it's much about the questions that it's, so you reach out to somebody, they're going to take a quick glance at you. And if there's a humanity in your product, like I did the dumbest shipped photography for years. Like I would put like prisms and everything. It looked like someone threw up in the camera. I was like, what the fuck? Like just the dumbest stuff. But it was me trying to figure out that I wanted to find a way to be compelling, and I couldn't exactly zero in on that. And then my style developed and matured, right? And I just became a better shooter. But the point is that even though Jeff, looking at that, probably thought this is nauseating, he goes, she's going to a game on her own accord. She's paid like $25, and she's going because she cares, and she refuses to go home until she's better than she was yesterday. And I think that buys you time.
Yeah.
And I still have a hard time asking my mentors for stuff, right? Because I truly, truly need them. I truly need their experience. It's their intellectual property, and the industry, I don't believe, values it. So then it's hard for me to ask for it, right? And they do worry about that. Um, like I have some people I care about a lot. I'm afraid to ask them questions. So I will try and just pay due reverence to the people who've spent their lives doing something that you revere. And I think that honesty probably comes across better than my words. I'm not as eloquent of a speaker, but I feel like I live in a way that manifests my appreciation for their hard work. And they see that I'm asking a question so that I can better elevate as a rising tide the industry as a whole. Like, do you
Yeah.
know Rob Foley here?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think I get on Rob's, I don't think, I know I get on Rob's nerves, but I think, yeah, I hope he sees that I keep coming back and keep sticking my head around like a gopher, like it keeps like whack-a-mole, because I'm just so curious about rising the whole tide. And the better we all get, the better we defend the industry, the better we patent what sports photography is, why it matters. Like, do you ever watch the ESPN? Is it the front row? Like, they have like the best of like their favorite frames over the years, and they explain them.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
And Phil talks about running to the top of the stadium to get that overall when the fans rush the field, or like Alan talks about forget what player it was that took over the game. Just these amazing stories. I think it was Vince Young. These amazing stories when you're just like, you know, this is historical. These are historical moments. And so the passion to tell that story in the strongest, most dynamic way possible, that's what we're always searching for. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in between that you have to do to get better and to sharpen that skill. And the people that came before us, like when we pick our mentors, that's who will help us get there. And so I think just, the closer I arrive to that, the more that translates when you reach out, and just reach out to people and just do it naturally.
Hmm.
Don't click on somebody because they have followers, or you see like such and such / Getty images. You're like, this is the guy. Is
Yeah.
there a rapport? Right? I've reached out to a lot of people and it wasn't a good fit. And they were like, they're like, no, this is not. They're like, Carmen, lose my number. Like, fair. No big deal. Thank you for
Yeah.
your time. I
Oh
also,
yeah, and it's so surprising too. Like some of the best photographers that I know in this industry, they don't have a following behind them, and it's because their pictures speak for themselves. You don't think about their face; you think about their pictures.
absolutely. Who are your mentors, Jenna?
Who are some of my mentors? I don't know if you would know one of my biggest ones. There's a guy here who covers Carolina. He's covered Carolina since the 80s. I know Michael Jordan was here whenever he photographed. His name's Robert Willett, and he works at the newspaper, the local newspaper here in Raleigh.
Okay.
And they work with the Charlotte Observer as well and AP. But one of the things I love about him so much is my very first game at Carolina, he kind of was just so willing to be like, this is where you can and can't go. This is, he just like stuck his hand out. And I'm not saying that that's for everyone. I don't know that everyone can do that because of some of the things we've already talked about where you are, it's their profession. They've watched it change. They've watched it get a lot worse. So giving you everything that they have what does that leave for them? But I just am always so impressed by his ability to be like so willing to share his knowledge and just be so genuine about it. I also love how he's kind of like you were saying about Jeff, like kind of tough. Like when it's time to go to work, it's time to go to work.
Mhm.
And so yeah, he's definitely
So I think a note about that too, that's such a great point. I think too, what I would say that you don't have to worry about making so we're asking, right? We're asking for help in our field. And I believe that with creatives, there is no one from the outside that can tell you what to do with point 0.3 frickin' seconds on the clock and who to go to. If you need the coach, if you need the winning shot, if you need the jube, that is a very specific industrial, like that is an industry standard piece of advice. That is not something that you can just Google, right? That is,
mm-hmm.
you want someone's opinion who can talk to you about that. So, right, that's what we're asking for, right? We are asking for that expertise. Right? But I don't think you need to worry about voicing that request. You reach out to the world, you throw your net out, you tell them, this is what I'm about. You'd love to help me. I would appreciate your advice, the moment of your time. Can I buy you a cup of coffee, etc. The time to do that is not when we're at work, right? So I've already
Right.
planted the seed. I've asked you for help. Now I go to a game. This is what I've always been told. Usually, if I have a breakthrough with somebody or if they take a shine to me, usually they say, you know, Carmen, I watched you cover the game. I saw how hard you worked. And then I have gained a moment of their time, right? I have earned a moment of their time. And so it sounds like that's exactly what you did. And that is, you know, Jenna, like I have a friend, Rob, who always tells me, oh, pay it forward. I go, Rob, pay what forward? I have like two sticks to rub together. I'm like, what are you always talking about? Because he has helped me so much. He goes, no, I know you're going to do this for somebody else. I was like, what? Bake them muffins? What can I do for anybody? Like, he's a very like a well-to-do shooter. And I'm like, what am I going to give somebody? Like, he's fixed like a shutter on my camera when I had like $30. I mean, just stuff that's like unbelievable.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm like, and he's like, no, 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 I know you're going to do this for somebody else. I was like, yeah, when I'm 80. So but God forbid, like if I ever do make it there, like I do try and do small stuff that I can. Like when I go to a game, I introduce myself to every female there. I say hi. A lot of times they just blow me off. I go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But I say hi because I've opened the door then. So once I'm shooting, I'm not going to look out for you to see if you're having a hard time. I've already told you in the beginning, my name's Carmen. And I looked you in the eye and shook your hand. And if you need anything, then you can tell, you can be like I was at a Georgia game one time and a young student there was shooting and her camera broke. So she came and sat down by me. She was obviously distressed and she goes, this is the situation. And so I gave her my third body because I was like, well, you know, whatever, right? At the time, now if I was out there for Getty, I probably wouldn't have given up a camera body, but
Mm-hmm.
I was in a different position at that time. And so I could make do. So, right, that's like something where quickly, I'm not going to spend time consoling you. But if we've already established, or I can lead you to a place. If I can't help you, I can say, hey, go do this. Or, hey, let's do this. Like I can be part of the solution for you. Right.
Yeah.
So, because traveling around that just happened to me. I went up to South Carolina for a game, and this guy just came up to me. He goes, "Hey, do you know how things work here?" When I went to New York, right away, first time I ever met Elsa, she was like, "Do you need a vest? Do you have?" I came there with United, and she was like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like I just want to leave here with you. Can we just go talk?" And she was, "Oh,
Yes.
your job."
Yes. That was
Um,
my exact same thought whenever so I got to sit next to her and shoot and I was just like
Get out,
she's just
where?
talking to me so she's super nice. We were actually at Ohio State for the NCAA basketball tournament last year and I that was my first time meeting her in person. I
Wow.
had talked to her a little bit just about, just about being a woman in sports photography, but I was just like can I just leave with you?
Yeah,
Same
I
thing.
just
Like,
like
can you send me some of your energy over here so I can make some
she was
frames like you?
talking. I couldn't hear a word she was saying. I just felt like angels singing, and I was like, I can't hear her. I can't even. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Jeff's probably listening to this, and like I've put in way more time with Carmen than anybody else, and she would throw me off a cliff or Rona and Elsa in a moment. Um, but so back to your original question. So I'm newer in Atlanta, right? Um, and there's a gentleman here who's the Getty staffer here, and he's a natural shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look at his tape and I'm like, I don't even fucking know what game he was at. We're at the same game. I go, I don't even know where. I don't. I didn't see any of this. I'm like, I just am never going to touch the camera again. It's
Just so we're
unbelievable.
clear, I had that feeling about you whenever we shot Michigan and
Yeah,
Florida. I was like, what in the heck? Where was she? Did this happen? I don't even remember seeing this happen.
I'm like next to him, and I go, I don't even know what game this guy's watching. And I've talked about it with his peers who've been here 30 years before, and they go, Carmen, it's not easy for you to work next to him. He's a fucking natural. He sees the game in a way that's just ununique. Like
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about, and I would agree 100%.
yeah,
So,
it's Kevin Cox.
yep,
Yeah,
Carolina guy.
you
He's a
can throw
Carolina
him.
guy.
Who fuck cares? He doesn't care. He's like, Carmen, don't ever say my name out loud. Okay, Beetlejuice. So he's just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
so, um, but we're so different. So Kevin's type A, just mission oriented, like tactical shooter, right? And I'm like ethereal, like my head's like in the weeds. Like he'll be like, do this. I turn around, I go the wrong way. He's like, was that intentional? I go, nah, I just like I have a creative mind. I'm nonlinear. So that's the part I work on, right? That's what's the effort is. Like the natural side of me is more visionary than it is application. So, but I feel like him and I are able to communicate because he tells me something because I've made a mistake, right? But then he watches, so he'll watch me on assignments where I'm not even working for him, and he can see that I'm trying to apply things. It's not that I was intentionally trying to be out of position or I overrode the decision of the team. That's not the thing. That's never the thing. It's just that things don't occur to me naturally, right? I have to learn the game. Football doesn't come natural to me. Sports,
Yeah.
they don't. I don't know where the ball's going. Dude, my entire life is me being faked out by the play. I go, look at this guy breaking ankles over here. I don't know. I'm fucking going with a fake. I always go with a fake. I can cover AI to save my life. So it's like I'm the person like that, right? So, but I think that he has watched that the effort is there, right? And so I think that his patience for me, grew because of that, because he watched um, that the desire is there, and if I have a choice, right? If they're like, hey, Karen, do you want to come over here or do you want to stay and work with Kevin? I'm going to choose Kevin because Kevin will make me better. Will give me the opportunity by telling me. And that's who you want to look for in a mentor. You want to find people who will give you a chance to get better at what you fucking love. There's nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing above that. To me, I think if you saw that I sucked, like, oh my gosh, Carmen's fucking chopping off ankles. Don't tell her. Don't tell her. Don't tell her to walk out. How mean is that? Is that heartbreaking? So
Yeah.
people think that like I like tough love. That's not what it is. I go, for me, it's like you're putting me a step closer to my goal, right? To make a
Yeah.
quality asset that my assigning editor sent me out there to do. If I'm going left and you're like, well, let her keep going. You're like, yeah, Carm, it's 3 turns at the light, right? Just let her keep going. Like that to me is heartbreaking. And so I
Yeah.
think that for kids, I can't say enough about that. And just talk to people. Like I'm not a good talker, and
Yeah.
um,
Same.
I get
You
nervous.
don't know how much it took to come up and talk to you after that game. I mean, like we talked about already, I was working and I had an assignment, and and once my work was done, that's when I came over and spoke with you. But I just am not a
Dude,
talker.
I'm so
I'm like,
grateful that you did that because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know her grandma passed. I feel terrible. Like, you say something real to me. I'm like, I thought about it the whole way home. And it's like, when I'm at a game, like I've just explained, I'm not a natural shooter. And I have to work and like focus. And like
yeah,
literally,
same.
I'm on 33 cylinders just to walk away with one frame. So it's like Carmen's taxed. She can't even tie her shoe. Literally, this is all she has. So people may get like the different impression, but it's like definitely make the connection and offer it up, right? Because then you grab my attention, you look at me and you can see like, oh my gosh, like this is rapport. It's like if we were in a relaxed setting having a margarita, we'd be like living, right? You can tell that we're in a tense situation, but you can feel And that's like, if you talk to like Jen or like Rona, Elsa, like, and you can tell like we're at work, but you can tell if we were walking home, we'd be like, oh my God, what's your cat's name? What I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
so you can feel that. So just reach out to as many people as you can, because then you'll feel the natural rapport.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Okay, two more questions for you.
Okay.
Real quick, let's pivot. So I'm looking back at this Colorado photo again. So let's maybe can you share a little bit about your process for how you? I mean, we've talked a lot about like storytelling, and that's kind of where kind of you would rather focus on that, which is the same for me. Um, but how do you go about finding ways to show this emotion that you share in your images? Because every time I look at your images, I just think like I'm there, I'm in that moment. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that takes a
So I think we want to control delivery, right? I'm trying to, it's your reaction to the image. You're in charge of that. But as much control I can have over your attention span. I want to tell the story, but the whole point of being a working photographer is if nobody wants to read your story, then you're not going to be called back tomorrow. The way that we try and get that enticement is to tell it in a more beautiful, dynamic way, right? So using that Rockies photo, you see a beautiful moment coming, right? I saw the sun dropping in and I turned to Matt and I was like, what is your life? And he's like, Carmen, settle down. Because I was just like enamored, right? Right away, I know exactly. And there's two things, right? Beautiful light dropping in, you can do two things. You can edge it, right? Or you can chase the light completely into your frame and get the blown out flares, like that kind of Michael Bay. Have you ever seen a Michael Bay movie? He has all those flares, like, and that's in post. I think he adds that. I don't want to speak. He's like, well, she's speaking on my behalf, but in cinematography is a huge influence for me.
yeah.
So you have these two choices, right? So I was with one of my buddies, Doug, who went upstairs and made some beautiful frames of long shadows. But in my head, I was like, I can make that anywhere. I can go to a two soccer game and make some long shadow photos. I go, I don't want that. I want to fight. I want to fight focus and get that. I want that flare, right? So
Mm-hmm.
then, but I know, Jenna, that's not enough. I can't just sell somebody a pretty picture because I'm like, Carmen, nobody cares about this. So I need to stay on that picture. So I think that my answer is commitment. So you're isolating. It's my job to pick what's beautiful. I picked the sun. This is beautiful, right? So, and I also have two frames, right? So I'm on my 14 and then I'm on my 72. So my 14 is for I'm watching them come out of the dugout. I drop my exposure way down, and that's gonna be my edge frame, right? That's gonna be my hard light. That's like a baseball, right? A typical baseball frame. But then I have the ethereal one with the pitcher, and I have to commit. So I'm gonna miss some stuff, right? But thankfully, I might not have got that photo if I'm on assignment. But I was out there playing, right? Spent all that money to go there. I was like, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna make whatever fucking photo I want to make. So you just got to stay on it till you know that you've made a moment. You can't just, right? Like, we're not landscape shooters. So if I just submit a photo to an editor, he'd be like, what is this? You just took a picture of the sun with a blurry picture stand in there? That's not a photo. I need him to do something. So I need him to be either backed up in the couch, like where he kind of feel his anxiety, which is why he kind of, when he stepped off the mound, like that was kind of, when he's kind of making that Pierce face, you can tell that he's, I think he was down like um, probably 3 balls to none, something like that, where he was like, trying to come up with something and is in a moment, right? A fleeting moment, but it's your job to be in charge of that. You know that you need the ducks, you know what it takes. And I'm always in the back of my head thinking, this is my ticket back tomorrow. So, and fucking run towards it. Like all the time people are like, Carmen's like, there's so many opinions out there about the way that all of us attack storytelling. And I definitely take it in from your superiors, but at the same time, like, just make the photo that you think you should make, because I think that the more honest you can be with your vision is probably the more likelihood in success of your evolution, right? So it's like you can't make a photo from somebody else's mind frame. So if I see that this guy's running back with excitement, I know the law of energy. I know that he's going to jump into a pile where the other guys are going to be excited. And so I need to be over there. I don't need to be 3,000 meters away on my long lens because I'm tired. I need to run my like lazy carcass over there and make that wide angle frame so that you
Yeah.
feel like you're like if you've never been to a college football game, you've never seen these players jump into the stands. I want to get there so that the guy's kicking me in the chin. So that literally you feel like that's if the frame doesn't feel that way, then it doesn't implore that. It's not communicating anything.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
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 great.
what I try and that's what I
Great.
try to do.
Yeah. I remember when I saw this image, I was just like, are you freaking kidding me?
Babe, we should ask some better photographers what their tips are on shooting into the sun because I struggle with focus. That's not your camera just it bites back. It does not like to hold focus with that, so that's tough.
Yeah.
It's like freelancing. I'll freelance a lot because I'm too poor to own a tilt shift,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes 20 minutes to make a frame because it fights you.
Yeah. Well, you definitely made one here. So,
Yeah.
okay, last question for you, and then I'll let you go. We've been talking your ear off.
No, this is a dream. I'm like, oh no, Jenna, I didn't even know what you were running at all. I was like, Jenna wants to talk to me. I'm like, I'm available tonight. You're like, settle down. It's next week.
Well, I've been trying to get this together for a bit, and I finally got everything going, and it's been amazing. I'm super excited. I actually I'm in love with what we've talked about so far. So I'm thinking, oh
Yeah,
man,
I'm sorry. You
Carmen might have to
guide
be
me
the
with
first one
questions
we go with on here.
because I'm always a tangent person. So you have to give me, you have to be like, Carm, you're off topic. Because I'm like, well, Hemingway once said, people are like, what? Where are you?
No, this is great. This is good stuff. Okay, last question for you.
Okay.
So we've talked a lot about, aspiring photographers and kind of the routes that they should take, and um, being a female photographer, so a woman in sports photography, what specific advice geared towards women would you? I'm sure a lot of what you've already said applies specifically to women, but if there's anything that you can think, like, oh, this might not be geared towards sports photographers in general, but specifically towards like somebody who's a woman and who wants to get into sports photography.
Okay. I don't really like answering this question
I know.
because
I feel the same way.
I mean, it's so painful, really. Like, it hasn't been great. And I don't ever want to leave on a note of negativity or anything of that nature. But um, I think too, even as a female of size, if you will, it hasn't been a smooth road.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely, and again, learned this from Jen, more so, you need to get thicker skin. And I like light candles at night and like put up little my old like Springsteen statues and we pray for thick skin and I wake up the next morning and it's still not fucking here. Um, you
Yeah.
have to have thick skin. You have to have faith in your passion that you have one chance at life on this earth and you have to earn a living and support you and your loved ones. And if this is the ticket to do that, then you are doing this for everybody that means the world to you. And so if I really get backed up against a wall and I really can't come up with any mustard, I'll think to myself, like my dad worked his like three fucking jobs to give me life and to take care of me while he was here. And I'll be damned if I squander that because they don't want Carmen at this game.
Mm-hmm.
And, I try and stay quiet about things, but I've been bullied by a few prominent people in the industry and it's
Mm-hmm.
made roads harder. But I have faith in this. I think that if I stay Carmen, I think 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they're gonna be like, oh, that whole storyline, that was a bit, or that was a storyline, and that was what that was. But the way that she lived, the proof in her pudding is tangible. It's on the carpet. And so you need to take your power back as a female. Nobody is going to invite you to make a frame. And it's
Yeah.
really scary because you really look up to these men. And like, it's really hard to show up and know they don't want you there. And that's tough. But you need to have the courage and the curiosity to invest in yourself. You have to be curious about the art that you want to create and cultivate your little space to do so. Um, and if you can, find a female you can talk to, because that's a really personal experience that you're not going to get solace from talking to your male counterpart. They will not help you.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think men think about the fact that, like, I remember one time I was at a baseball game and a photographer who I just absolutely adore, just love him. He was like, "Look, there's three of you today." And I was like, "Oh my God, it's," and he just railroaded him. He's like, "Sorry I said anything." But I was like, "Oh, it's a party. First time in 10 years. I'm in a well where so, but think about that. Every time I go to work, it's 10 to 1.
Oh,
And
for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not just about the numbers, it's about men have been given opportunities, in my opinion, to improve quicker.
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing. And um, I've been given a ton of amazing opportunities, but still, um, the the safety to just focus on work, this is a fact, Jenna, wasn't provided when I showed up. So I had to deal with like emotional nonsense and then
Mm-hmm.
go out and do my job. And
Yeah.
that's the truth. And that's what happened. So I don't allow it. I'm not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to use it as a hurdle. You're not allowed to, use it as an excuse to underperform. That's the reality there. And at the same time, if you find yourself frustrated, reach out to one of us, talk to us. I will hold your hand until you can hold your own. And then secondly, if Rona was like a staff assigner in a room of 50 men, I can be in a room with 5 men, right? They did it
Yeah.
before us. And so out of homage to them, um, I'm going to hold court. And we're going to make it better for the person that comes next. And it's also stand up to your friends and tell them, hey, it wasn't a good ride, right? My guys want to tell me now, like, you're fine, you made it, you're fine. It's like, it's not fine. Those are wounds. It takes time to heal, right?
Yeah.
But time and place, and also the best thing that we can all do is make each other better. The loudest, you're never going to see me put up a post like, as a female, I just want to say, no, I already said it.
Yeah.
I pushed myself to the front of that fucking scrum to take the photo. And me putting my photo on the wire is that's a female photo on the wire, period. I don't have to go in and then put it in text. The photo says it, right? So
Yeah.
the more we all work to be a rising tide, the more that we just can put that to bed one day. And
Yeah.
I think that's the goal.
Yeah. No, that's great advice.
What do you think, honey? What do you think on that?
So, yeah, I remember when I was just starting to move into kind of covering college athletics, kind of moving away from my documentary and dance photography into more football and that kind of thing. The first game that I covered, someone came up to me and was like, "Have you ever been here before? What are you doing here?" That kind of thing, and I was just like,
Yeah. What are you
"Why do
here
you
for?
care? Like, why are you worried about where I am and what I'm doing and who I am and just go make your photographs." You know what I mean? But I remember listening to this interview with Elsa, and she was talking about,
Oh, at
uh,
Minnesota, right?
was it, what was that?
It was in Minnesota, right? That's
You know,
cool.
I don't know if it was Minnesota, but I remember the story goes something like there was a TV guy who like kind of asked her why she was there and stood in front of her, so she pulled his cord out. Do you know this story?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I thought, goodness gracious, even she deals with this, and she's
Fucking
Elsa.
Elsa. Yeah.
So I I was just like, I can do this. I can hang it up. But I do see since over the past few years, I do see kind of a trend in the right direction. For instance, I was covering a Carolina basketball game this year, and one of the analysts that was working for ESPN who came to cover the game, her name's Brooke, and I was the only female sitting there, and she specifically sought me out and said, "Hey, can you snap a couple pictures of me while I'm doing this broadcast before the game starts?"
Love that.
And 100% she sought me out because I was the only female on the line. Like that happened. And that kind of thing, I've never had that happen before. So, and just, we've developed a really great relationship. When I see her now, we always speak. And I don't know, just the opportunity to develop that relationship solely because I'm a female, I never can imagine that happening 3 years ago.
I also think it's tied. So I'm treated better based on the agency I show
Yeah,
up with.
for
Um,
sure.
so I worked for a blog in Tampa, and it was like the vein of people's existence that I was there. And it was really tough. And I'll never forget that. And I think probably like in 20 years, like they'll be standing there looking at me, and that's like what I said earlier. My memory is going to be like you were a 60-year-old guy. I told me to go fuck myself because I was working for $3. That's what you were mad about. And it's like
Hmm.
I was, um, I wasn't doing something that harmed the industry. I was doing the later in life internship. Right? I couldn't intern when I was 20 because someone was taking care of me. I've been taking care of myself since I was 16. So you don't get to work for free. That's not what happens. So I had to intern
Yeah,
when I was older, and then I drove Uber at night. That's what I did. That's just so inner strength. That's the thing.
yeah,
Like, so I almost think that's the answer for all of it. So you study the craft, you study the people that do it well, then honor yourself in your pursuit of it, and that will speak to the right people. And the wrong people, you just have to try and ignore it and
yeah,
learn from someone like me that I think my thin skin affected my career, and I would give anything to go back, and you can't. You don't get to change that. So learn from
yeah.
my mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, it's so fun now too. That guy that reached out to me at the first game, or reached out, he was not very kind at all. But
He's not reaching out. He's telling you
two,
shouldn't be there. It's not a
yeah,
yeah.
2 years later, I hadn't seen him in 2 years. All of a sudden, he's back at Carolina covering a football game. Has no idea who I am. Is very friendly. I don't like. I'm just like I'm so confused about why, in particular, that day. And so I kind of try to think of it like, I to get through that thin skin, sometimes I just think, especially being a mom now, I'm just like, dude, I don't care. Like, I don't care. In the grand scheme of things, like, your opinion of me doesn't really matter. Um,
That's
and like you said earlier, like, you'll find your people.
You will find
Um,
your people, and it's such a mistake to let someone else dictate your behavior. That is such a misfortune, and it's a human condition, and we get upset, and it's emotional. Um, like I'm the most devout person of service workers, like clearing my plate, or like ambulance, like EMS people. Somebody at Denny's bringing me coffee. I'm just like, thank you for your time. They're like, ma'am, calm down. Like, I love service members, but even like at the national championship, I was really sick when I was there, and I was anxious, and um, was a tough assignment. And so I just had all the other things going on, and I snapped at a bus driver. And then, like, I
mhm.
felt bad for like 6 months. And it's like, what in what world do you let these other things dictate? You have one chance to put your actions out there. Those are their actions. You need to let that die with them. You cannot compromise who you are. And I'm not like on a puppet stop, just spewing this. I'm saying that I make the mistake all the time. But if we could just get control of that, the younger, if the younger, as young as you can be, and get control of this, if your actions are your own responsibility, their actions are their responsibility. And it's upsetting, and you take that home and you deal with it, but get it off your plate. Get it off your plate.
Yeah,
And if you can be strong, and I think women coming across now that I see, they're much stronger. I had no fear. Like, I'd be afraid to post a picture for like 3 years, and that's just changed so much. So I think maybe I could probably learn from the younger generation, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think, you can learn something from anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But number one thing for a female, find another female, they understand, and have the courage to bring forth what you have to offer the industry. I am not weaker because I'm a female. I am talented because I am female. I think that that's what I try and think about.
Yeah. Goodness, thank you so much. I'm gonna go back and listen to this just so I can learn some more. Holy cow, you just gave us, you
I
know.
hope it was somehow, it was like answer the questions you asked. I'm like an arterial thinker, and so it's really hard to keep me on task. But it's like my
Oh,
portfolio.
it's
Look at it,
you
like, what
totally
is
did.
this nonsense? I'm all over the place. It's like hard for me.
No, it's great.
You
It's
should
so
have given
great.
me an
So I
outline.
put down so I put down your link. I don't know if you can see it right here. It's like your Instagram handle.
Hmm.
If people want to find you, is that the best place to find you or
Yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah.
pretty active on there, so anybody who ever messages me, I always answer them right away. So
Yeah, I know. I don't. Pregnancy, like, took my mind away from social media for a while,
nice.
and I'm really good at posting stories now, but I have got to get better. I used to be so good at Instagram, and I don't know, it's not even just like I don't post that often. I don't really look at it that often either, and it's like my favorite place to connect with people and like, you know what I mean? And the way they do it, if you're not looking at it, at least once every few days or something, then you're not, you're missing out on some great things from your peers. So I don't think social media is the end all be all, but I definitely enjoy,
It's
you
tough.
know.
There's a lot of negativity that comes from social media, but I'm addicted to everything that I consider beautiful. And so, like, some obscure cycling frame from France, if I don't catch that, like when he posts it, like I'm not gonna like look that up later. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just this beautiful place where I get to see. I mean, like sometimes I wish I didn't have to hit like. I go, can it just be implied? I don't
Yeah.
follow anything I don't like. Every fucking photo on the feed I like. I like it all. I'm like,
I
I
know. I'm
watch
just
every
like,
single one of these. I go, can it just be implied? Can it be a blanket like? Um,
yeah.
that to me is the annoying part because I do want my friends to know I'm with them, I'm cheering them on, but I wish it could just be implied because it's like I
I
love them
like it
all.
all. I'm following you. That's why if I don't want to see your images, I'd unfollow.
Yeah,
So,
I love it all.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, love. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Gosh, hopefully I'll get down there soon. If I do, we'll have to get together.
Yeah, I would
I
love
mean,
that.
assuming all this is back to normal, I just want sports back, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would love to cover more road games. I keep trying to win over editors' assignments, but they're like,
Yeah.
just stay where you are. Like, okay.
You cover for Getty, right?
A little bit down here, yeah.
Yeah. Man, get with tell Kevin to put you in touch with Streeter. Let's get you up here.
I don't know if I would do that. But I don't think I would probably travel for Getty because they have their people everywhere, and
Yeah.
Streeter's like having 8 people at a game. Him and Erman are like ridiculous. Like, oh, you're gonna cover 8 sides? It's ridiculous. Um,
Yeah.
but I would I would hope to try and find other outlets too, because for me, being outside in the elements is where I like to cover sports, and so being here with the stadium, I don't necessarily love that. So
Yeah.
I
A
appreciate
little
any
different
time,
beast.
but you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, hon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for checking out this episode of We Shoot Sports, a podcast all about sports photography. As always, if there's a photographer you would like me to bring on the show, feel free to reach out to me at We Shoot Sports on Instagram. We'll see you guys on the next one.